Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we have Sara Shrode. She is talking to us about the TV series during movie week. Today we're talking about a TV series, Ted Lasso. Welcome, Sara.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. It's interesting because Sara and I work together and, every so often we'll talk about things other than work when we're in the hallways or in the classroom. And I'll hear her say, "Have you seen Ted Lasso?" I'll say, "No." A few days later, she'll say, "Have you seen it yet?" One time we were talking, me and a colleague were talking about, I don't know, triennial IEPs. And she came in and she said something like, did somebody say something about Ted Lasso?
Yeah, right.
Like,
Come on.
wow. She likes it. So when Jacob said we should watch Ted Lasso because it's about a coach, and I thought, okay, we should review Ted Lasso, and I know just who to review it with, Miss Shrode. So Ted Lasso is an American sports comedy show. I guess it's American. There's a lot of English to it because it's starring and developed by Jason Sudeikis, and it's about a college football coach, American football coach, who is hired to coach an English football team with the intention of him failing. And there's little machinations by the owner of this English football club, and but it stars, besides Jason Sudeikis, a real fine actress in Hannah Waddingham, who plays Rebecca Welton, the owner, Brett Goldstein, Juno Temple, and it's got a whole host of characters. And I'm going to ask you, Sara, why you like it. Obviously, you love it. But before you do, I want to say that the first two episodes, I was not liking it. Now, hold on. His jokes are so corny. Now, we reviewed Welcome Back, Kotter. He's corny. But wow, is Ted Lasso a corny guy? But by the third episode, I caught the fever. This character is so interesting. This Ted Lasso, I mean, it's hard to separate the character from the actor. There's something about him, and I will go into the teaching style or the coaching style, but I will just say that the performance is just so warm and funny, and the corniness, which I was critical of in the beginning, I bought into because it's part of his strategy of reaching people and being humble. So you were going to get into my favorite episode, Sara, which is the Ted Krim episode. And by the way, Trent Krim, James Lance, the actor who plays him, fantastic. It is so far. So we're only reviewing 5 episodes, although you guys can talk about more. You're both fans of the show. It is my favorite episode so far, the Trent Krim episode, and he describes why Ted is great, or why maybe not a great coach, perhaps, but why he, who originally was critical of Ted Lasso as a coach, this reporter, ends up rooting for him because of that humility and that self-deprecating humor and so much about him. Sara, what makes this show so great?
So I was kind of late to the Ted Lasso party myself. It actually, I maybe saw it when I turned on Apple TV because I was watching the morning show. I didn't know the background. I didn't know the skit that it was based on. And I had a coworker who, studied screenwriting in school at the last school that I worked at. And she knew I always talked and made just threw one-liners out when I was teaching based on the show Scrubs, because I loved Scrubs. That was the show I watched in my 20s. I just was addicted to that show. And one of the things I loved about that show was the layers. I mean, it was a comedy, but it had a lot of layers to it. And it paid a lot of homage, to other movies. And, their 100th episode was based on The Wizard of Oz. I mean, there was things that I loved about that show. And my coworker pointed out, did you know that Ted Lasso is the same creator? And I was like, I had no idea. And right away, I was like hooked. I'm like, turned it on that night. All you had to say, same creator as Scrubs, and I was hooked. And it was during the pandemic. And I have to say, it just brought so much joy. You know, it was just such a feel good character, like the Lasso effect. You know, you just get so you get pulled in, especially by that third episode.
Oh yeah.
And I think just during a time where we were all just so disconnected, it was really nice, you know, to have something so good, so feel good out there. And I think that's really what drew me in at the time.
It's funny because I just read a critique of the show recently saying, oh, this was a good show for, you know, during COVID, but now it's just too gooey and it's not, you know, no. And I disagree. I still, like Ruben shared, after a couple episodes, you start saying, hey, this guy has some, he's doing this for a reason why he's not just his reason, but he's a good person. He's a genuine good man. And he has some good things to say and good things to teach, even though he's not really a soccer coach. And you see him grow, and he's willing to learn from other people and say, hey, yeah, even a guy who works as the towel guy, right? He goes, I think his name's Nathan, right? Nate. Hey, he ends up giving some plays, right? And teaching the other players. And I think that shows you who he is. And no, I think this show does a lot. And we haven't talked about the mental health, which really comes on later on in the show. But it really is a show for that. I think you go say, well, you know what? It's okay to say that I'm not doing well. To get somebody to talk to a psychologist, that's brought up in the show quite a bit later on. I know we looked at the first 5 shows, but I think it goes even deeper as the show goes on. I'm sorry, Ruben, you're gonna say something.
You mentioned one of the many things he does well, and that is he consults anybody he consults. I don't know what they call it, the kit boy or the
Kit man.
The kit man.
Yeah.
Basically the ball boy. I haven't seen enough, but that's very humble what he does. He's willing to ask questions. So as a teacher, now not all teachers have somebody to kick things off of that are watching what you're doing. I am lucky to have that. I have a paraprofessional in my class, but I try to ask her, what do you think? As teachers, sometimes we don't want to do that, especially if it's not at a person at our level. But Ted Lasso does. That's a very good strategy. Be willing to, because that person's observing and sees things you might not see. So that was a good strategy.
I think it very much relates to what we do as a profession, because we do have to feel out our students and kind of understand their personality and build that rapport in order to, you know, kind of give them those nudges that they need. And he does such a fabulous job of it. And I think, you know, you really kind of see that in that third episode with the Trent Crim, when he gives everybody their book. And then the book ends up, you know, really kind of penetrating through with with Roy, as he's kind of going through this, everybody's bullying the kit man. And he realizes, you know, when Ted says, I'm not going to intervene, and then he's reading the book and he's with his niece, and you realize he makes that realization that, oh, he's looking to me as, you know, to be the leader in this situation. And I love this character of Roy Kent. He's my favorite character on the show. And I love his character. And I just love that he's the first one that kind of gets affected by the Ted Lasso effect, as they so to speak say.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
I kind of share, Ruben. I mean, just to go on with that, just even him willing to sit adults down, star players. You know, you don't do that. You do that in Little League, but you don't do that in the pros. So I think that just kind of blows away a lot of the fans who are upset, right, when they sit down the Jamie character for some plays. And I think he was willing to do that to send a message and say, hey, you know what? No one person's better than the other person, right? No one person is more important than the other person. And I think that was just a good lesson.
The comparison, we've seen 1,000 movies in the last couple of years, Miss Shrode, and so I can't help but compare these teachers or coaches or teachers with each other. But I have to go back to Kotter, and even though I was more critical of Welcome Back, Kotter, and I ultimately didn't recommend it, but one thing I will say about both of these guys is they're so optimistic and they're always in a good mood. And I say that because it's another important quality for a teacher is, and if anybody thinks that's easy to always be optimistic, try it sometime. Try that every day. And that's Ted Lasso. And the jokes started to, by the way, I have a few examples of these corny jokes I'm going to say. I started to laugh after a while. I'm going to share in a bit, but it really impacts people. And I'm starting to see it on this owner, of the football club, where she doesn't want to give into the, as you say, Lasso effect, but she slowly succumbs to it because you can't help it. He's so kind. And, what else haven't we covered about this before I give you some of the jokes? He has
I'm just curious what it was about that third episode that really started.
Yes, what I liked is that Trent Crimm, what he does is he does originally there was going to be a hit piece on him. They get the most critical reporter to do a piece on Ted Lasso, and they end up spending time together. And Trent Crimm, this reporter, pays attention to how he treats people. And one of the things he says, I think, is so important. We really saw this in another movie that we're reviewing this week, Around the Block, starring Christina Ricci. Her style was similar, and this is how Trent Crimm stated it. He said, his coaching style is subtle. It doesn't hit you over the head. And I like that. I think sometimes as teachers, we don't want to be subtle, and we're influenced by other teachers and things we read and the movies we watch. We want to be Dead Poet Society. Sometimes it doesn't have to be that big. Sometimes it's just a question, and it's a book. You mentioned the books that he was giving. He also talks about his humility in how he ate all the spicy food given to him at an Indian restaurant, and he didn't give up. He finished the meal, but he mentions how he is a guy who will probably fail, but you can't help but root for him. I think it's really a great episode.
Isn't that where Rebecca starts figuring out that those biscuits, because she can't, she's the owner, right? She wants to tear this guy down, and he gives her these biscuits every day. And I think that's the episode where she finds out that he's the one making those biscuits, right? And she starts, I don't want to say she's warming up to him, but she's starting to see, wait, there's something more to this guy, and of course it takes some more episodes, but I think it shows you who he is. He's just, even that little biscuit, and he does it every day, and that is just something about his character that you say, wow, he goes the extra mile for his boss, which is pretty cool.
So Rebecca at one point asks him, I spoke to the owner of the Sun today. Ted says, you spoke to God? When it comes to locker rooms, I like them the way, When it comes to locker rooms, I like them the way I like my mother's bathing suits, in one piece. It's pretty good.
It's good, man.
He has a few of them like that. They're funny, and he uses them, I think, in a self-deprecating way, because he knows the owner is rolling her eyes and the players are rolling their eyes. But if you're willing to humble yourself, perhaps your players will too. They'll follow suit. And
also, just to piggyback on that, I think that's really key with teachers, because, in the 20-something years that I've been in education, students respond to the teachers that have humility, to the teachers who are able to laugh at the same jokes or laugh at themselves in front of the kids. And, that's one of the things I think I connected about with the character so much is especially because our kids need to understand, they need to see that modeling that, hey, even as an adult, I can take constructive criticism from a teenager. We can have this mutual respect. Like, you can give me advice and I can handle it. And I think that was kind of what you were saying before about how he's willing to talk to anybody, for feedback.
Absolutely. Now, Ms. Shrode, what do you have behind you? What is that?
Oh, wow.
This is my Little People, my Ted Lasso Little People set.
Oh, I see Ted Lasso right there.
I don't know if there's a glare.
Is that Beard right next? Is that Beard? We didn't even talk about Beard, huh? He's like his, I don't know what you call Beard. He's just this great assistant.
Yes, and that's another thing about watching this show is I love how all the characters just feed off of each other so well. Like, so I can't ever watch an episode once. Like, I always watch it and then I go back and I put the subtitles on and I watch it again because I really love the subtleties of like Beard's facial expressions and Higgins. I mean, he's used in such an amazing way. I mean, Ted wins him over in like the second episode.
Sweet, yeah.
And he's just,
I think Beard is like, you can't have Ted Lasso without Beard because they play off each other. Beard, like, he knows everything about him. He's like, he's been with him for so long. You know how you have those friends who just know you and they know what you're all about. Even when you mess up, they're like, hey, it's all right. You're gonna be all right. We're gonna go for it. We'll do it this way. He just loves them unconditionally. He follows them to England. It's just, what a beautiful friendship that is. That was great.
And I love that they keep Beard such a mystery, to the audience. And I mean, you get to learn more about him as the show continues in the next couple of, seasons, but there's still this mystery behind Beard, and I love it. That's one of my favorite aspects of the show.
Oh yeah, Ruben, you got to see the episode where it's all Beard, and you get some ideas of him a little, right? He's so much fun.
I'm looking forward to it. And any last words on Ted Lasso? I think that it's one of those gifts that keep on giving. And I agree. It seems like by the third episode, you start to feel the pull and the power of this guy and this story. And remember, everybody, it's a comedy. At first, I found it absurd that they would hire this guy, but it's played for laughs. I mean, he's a college football coach and has never played soccer, but that's part of the joke. And then you know that there's principles that means something to him. And I'm still thinking about this thing that he said about it's not always wins and losses that I'm concerned with. He tells that to Trent, and then Trent Krim is like, oh, that's going to be the lead. That's going to be the first sentence of this story, because there's more to it. And maybe as a teacher, we can reflect that some of these wins are very incremental. We're not going to see great impact right away, but it's in these little moments, these little steps, perhaps.
Very good.
Any last words?
No, just watch it. Watch Ted Lasso. It's still on. I think it's the final season. They're only doing 3 seasons, so
it's the final season.
I believe so.
I think for the Ted Lasso storyline, but I have heard that they're thinking of spinoffs.
Oh, that'd be great.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you, Sara, for joining us on this episode about Ted Lasso. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me and for understanding why the show just warms my heart.
You want him over.
You awesome. Did. Yes. I'm glad I listened to both of you. Actually, both of you influenced me. So thank you very much. Go Bills.
Yes.
Go Raiders, but go Bills.
No, go Bills.
New York. Yeah.
The Raiders
I'm going to Buffalo this summer. So all right.
The Raiders what? Sure.
The Raiders now have Garoppolo.
I know. Believe me, I'm celebrating our maybe third place finish, because we have the Chiefs in our division. Who am I kidding? All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.